We started our 16-day cruise in Rotterdam, then visiting Eifjord and Aalesund. Now we're heading further up the fjords to the little town of Geiranger. Today we're heading up to the Dalsnibbe Plateau and an outlook on that far peak. But guess how we're getting there? In one of these, a small two-person e-car. After being given a quick orientation, we were told to drive directly up to the top, a 45-minute climb, and not to worry if you only have 1 or 2 bars left on your battery, because you'll be recharging some of it on the way back down. The ride wasn't very comfortable, especially for Marianne in the back. With no windows, it was cold and windy. But once you got to the peak, it felt like you were on top of the world. On the way back down, we took our time, stopping at many of the scenic sites, including the just thawing Jufatnet Lake. The snows were still melting, feeding the many beautiful waterfalls. This section of the old road is called the Knot, since the same road winds around and crosses over itself. Just above town is the Seydisfjordur viewpoint, with a gorgeous view of our ship anchored in the fjord. Back in town, we did some shopping. In addition to browsing the usual souvenir shops, we visited the grocery store. We usually enjoy seeing what kind of unusual local items we can end up finding. Today we just ended up with a couple of ginger beers before having lunch back on the ship. Our ship was docked on a new articulated floating pier called a sea walk. After lunch we walked through town, heading up toward the Norwegian Fjord Center. Besides a number of exhibits on how the settlers originally lived here, there was a movie showing how the unusual landscape was created and the biological diversity of the area. But the highlight was walking along the raging river and the Stornfossen waterfall. We're back on the ship for the beautiful sailaway through the Geiranger Fjord. Our last port takes us back down south, to the city of Bergen. Bergen is Norway's second largest city, and our ship was docked near the old wharf buildings, called the Bergen. The original buildings were burnt down in the Great Fire of 1702, but were rebuilt in the same location. They consist of a series of narrow walkways, lined with shops and restaurants. At the end of the harbor was the fish market, called the Seydisfjordur. Prices in general were very high. We actually peeked into a butcher shop and saw a roast of about 3 to 4 pounds selling for about $225. There was plenty of tasting available, including sausages made of moose, reindeer, and whale meat. After wandering through town, we came across this red brick church. It was St. John's, and they were having a caroling concert. Next we headed toward the funicular railway that would take us up to the top of Mount Flyen for a wonderful panoramic view of the city. Back on board, our sailaway takes us around the many little islands that surround the city. As we pass under the Askøy Bridge, we say goodbye to Norway. We're traveling across the Norwegian Sea to Iceland. Our first stop is the small village of Seydisfjordur. The village only has about 800 winter residents, but that number can double in the summer. So you have to wonder why this would be a cruise ship stop. But it's for the undisturbed nature of the area. We're taking a bus tour to the remote eastern coast. Our destination is a large puffin colony, about 3 hours' drive away. But first we're stopping at the small village of Borgafjord Estuary. Just outside the village was an outcropping of rock, called the City of Elves, and is where the Queen Elf is said to live. We were told that this area is home to only about 100 real people, but has the largest population of hidden people, or elves, in Iceland. Icelandic elves look a lot like humans, and typically live in areas of unusual rock formations, and you should always get their permission before building something nearby. Also, if an elf ever asks you a favor, it is not wise to turn it down. We did see some birds in the city of elves. This is a rock ptarmigan, and these are oyster catchers. We had lunch at the small Alpha Cafe, and we got to try some of the local fish jerky. Behind the cafe were large structures for drying fish. Our guide explained some of the process.
The fish goes up sometime in late March or something, because it had to be certain dry, on certain states before before the climate starts to warm up. With the warming up with the better weather, the flies come in.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And you have to have it more or less almost ready before the.
So you're drying it in the cool weather, not the hot weather.
You dry it in a cool weather, exactly. You dry it in a long period in the cold weather.
Yes.
Nowadays it's done probably some section in there, controlled situation, but the traditional way is to use
the traditional weather.
Yeah.
So the heads take longer to dry, and that's why they're still out here, or is it?
It's just because this guy he likes to kind of like keep the traditional show things how it is. It's just more for show.
Well, I hope you like pictures of puffins, because just down the road was the puffin colony we were heading for. And they were so cute, I just couldn't stop taking pictures. Puffins nest in burrows underground. The nest is made by the male, but both incubate the eggs and feed the young. Puffins are unique in that they can catch multiple fish in their bills, allowing them to serve up larger meals to their young. In this area, they are feeding primarily on sand eels. So now we have the 3-hour drive back to Seydisfjordur, but experiencing those puffins was well worth the time. Well, it's June 22nd, and we're heading north past the Arctic Circle. That means we're not going to see the sun set tonight as we head toward our next port, Akureyri.